सो पिछले साल मैंने एनीमे के बारे पे एक वीडियो बनाई थी बिना एनीमे देखे। But now it's time for an 8K 60 FPS HDR high efficiency video codec 10-bit 7.1 Dolby Atmos remake जो कि एक सेपरेट वीडियो होगी। Now let's talk about anime. So what is anime and why is it so great? Like, god damn, this shit is good as fuck. Anime refers to animation, or you can say that anime means Japanese animation. Now just because anime is made from animation, कुछ लोग बोलेंगे कि हाँ भाई कार्टून्स ही है और कुछ नहीं है, और sometimes Chinese cartoons. Listen, anime is an art form and it's amazing. Now don't get me started in anime versus cartoons. इसके लिए तो मैं अलग से स्पेशल वीडियो बनाऊंगा एंड उस वीडियो के अंदर कार्टून्स का इतना रोस्ट करूंगा कि कार्टून्स का नाम जलकर राख हो जाएगा। बट फॉर नाउ लेट्स कंटिन्यू विद दिस वीडियो। Animes are often based on manga. यार मुझे manga explain करनी पड़ेगी। A Japanese manga artist will create the story and draw it on a manga and then refine it by adding a lot of details and then publish it. Now comes the anime studio which will animate it. And just like that, a lot of animes are being animated based on the manga. Is what I would say. Well, they are being animated on the basis of manga, but sometimes the anime will not follow the manga after certain chapters. Some animes are original as they aren't based on any type of manga. In total, we have 3 possibilities of the story. Now we know that animes are based on manga and are released, but where? कहाँ पे हो रही है एनिमेज रिलीज? हम कहाँ पे देख सकते हैं एनिमे को? There are 4 possible ways to watch anime. First is streaming sites like Crunchyroll, Funimation, Netflix, etc. Second is Blu-ray. Third is on the broadcast TV, and lastly, fourth is the free way. Now I personally use the free way cause long story short, it's better. The amount of effort and work that goes into creating an anime is insane. From visually stunning animations to incredible OSTs. And emotional voice acting. अब मानो या ना मानो, everything in the anime is either hand drawn or drawn on computers. The background is drawn, the characters are drawn, everything is drawn. A lot of animators work at a lot of different shots of a scene, from basic drawings to adding colors, animating them, adding a lot of visual effects, color correction, etc. बड़ा लंबा process है ये. And I was only talking about the animation. Anime studios also offer top voice actors and top music producers to voice the characters and produce the opening and ending songs of the anime. Now just imagine what the result will be when we combine top music producers plus top voice actors plus top animation and visuals. We get something from this and this to this. A bonus point is that we get to vibe at anime openings and endings like Well, now you guys must have understood that anime is a pretty big deal. And since it's a pretty big deal, the amount of efforts that goes into creating such masterpiece is unmatched. Yeah, well, we do understand, but can we let the kids watch the animes that you all claim to be masterpieces? Kids.
Man, Fuck them kids, bro.
The real answer to this question is yes and. There are some movies that kids can watch while there are some that kids can't watch. Just like that, there are some animes that kids can watch and some that kids definitely can't watch. Animes are divided into different what the fuck genres. Did you know that Pokemon, Shin-chan, Doraemon are actually animes and not cartoons? Well, they don't look so visually stunning as you said. That's because of its genre कोडोमो जो कि मोस्टली बच्चों को टारगेट करता है एंड ऑफ कोर्स ओनली किड्स विल बी वॉचिंग इट सो ज़्यादा एफर्ट डालने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Pokemon is kinda in the middle of Kodomo and Shonen. Speaking of Shonen, most of the action, adventure, thriller, fighting animes are under the Shonen genre. And their audience target is the teen boys because as a teenager boy we all love shows or movies about action and all. There are harem animes. More like my daily online classic cause I am the only boy who's willing to study. कॉमेडी एनिमेज विद कॉमेडी 100 स्लाइस ऑफ लाइफ जो कि बहुत ज़्यादा ही नॉर्मल है. इसेकाई एनिमेज आर अबाउट गोइंग टू अ न्यू वर्ल्ड. ओके एंड व्हाट्स द प्रोसेस? स्टेप 1 die. Romance animes about people falling in love. That's definitely not my life. Next up we have hentai. नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं. The next genre is called lolicon. Yo, what kind of genre is this? देखो मुझे इसके बारे में कुछ नहीं पता, ठीक है. आई एम अ वेरी वेरी गुड बॉय, यू नो, अ वेरी वेरी वेट व्हाट द फक. नाउ द फाइनल जेंडरा जिसके लिए लोग अपने फोन्स एंड हेडफोन्स यूज करते हैं, एची एनिमेज. दीज एनिमेज आर वेल द बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल मेरी क्लास के लौंडे हैं जो हमारी क्लास में मिया खलीफा के नाम के साथ ज्वाइन करते हैं. हाँ, तुम्हारी बात कर रहा हूँ. एंड बाय द वे,
पढ़ाई लिखाई में ध्यान लगाओ, IAS बनो और देश को संभालो. लेकिन नहीं गाड़ में चनूने काट रहा है.
Since you're watching anime, there will be some of those dangerous scenes जहाँ पे आपके पेरेंट्स हमेशा आपके रूम में आएंगे. Often known as fan service. चाहे शोनेन हो या रोमांस हो, एनिमे में फैन सर्विस होगी ही होगी बिकॉज हर एज ग्रुप के लिए बना हुआ है ये, फ्रॉम टीन्स टू अडल्ट्स. एंड सिंस अडल्ट्स विल बी वॉचिंग एनिमेस टू, द एनिमे विल हैव टू एड सर्टेन थिंग्स टू एंटरटेन देम टू, varying from dirty jokes to fan service itself. Fan service is usually added for comedic purposes, comedy 100 achieved. In shonen animes, it will range from none to mild or sometimes moderate, जो कि somewhat acceptable है. And in ecchi animes, 100% fan service. Most of the time, shonen animes are safe to watch on TV. Other genres like comedy, romance, slice of life are actually also safe to watch on TV, but do proper research before watching any kind of anime with someone, as something like this.
Are you winning, son?
Son, I'm proud of you for watching anime. I'll buy you a bigger TV than this one so you can enjoy anime to the fullest. Is definitely better than this.
Are you winning, son?
Son, you disgraceful, degenerate, disgusting creature. You shall be disowned as you don't deserve a family name. Goodbye, son. It's not that we like fan service or anything, baka. The fan base wants fan service and fan service is added for the fan base. Speaking of fan base, anime fan base and the support is pretty huge. The fan base is so fucking huge that 70% of the world animation is just anime. 70% सिर्फ एनीमे है. It is the fan base which makes the anime famous. Anime studios and Japanese artists get recognition. In terms of Japanese songs, anime openings and endings dominate. Most of the famous TikTok audios are from anime, or in simple words, social media influence. Anime editors create impressive edits. Weebs create fan pages with the news and memes based on the anime. And the memes are array bhai. Demon Slayer is an anime filled with violence and deaths, and the fandom? Attack on Titan being an anime with violence and death, and the memes? This is the best thing about the fandom. People even remix the openings, and the result is pretty impressive. Demon Slayer Mugen Train movie was on the top everywhere with crazy earnings. In theory, anime is dominating the world with the help of its fan base. Is this the power of weebs? But just like any popular fan base, there will be toxic fans. Now, people often say that the toxic fan base is always bad, as they do some stuff which ruin the reputation of weebs or give off a totally different impression about us. First case is being obsessed and always saying that their favorite anime will always be the best and nothing else can defeat it. Like, bruh, all of the animes are the best. Second case is unnecessary ships. No, wait, not ships, ships. I can already sense Boku no Hero Academia fandom, as they have taken straight characters, made them gay, and then complain about their ship not being an official thing, and then criticize and abuse, thus making the entire fandom the worst fandom. Meanwhile, the anime itself is actually very good though. Third case, providing fake anime info or wrong source. We weebs refer to anime title names as source, but it was originated from hentai codes. New weebs have almost no knowledge about what animes to watch, so they ask experienced weebs about where to start. और ऐसे कुछ गधे लोग होंगे जो उनको hentai codes और ecchi animes recommend करेंगे, and then they say कि it's very family friendly. और ऐसा क्यों करते हैं? Cause we do a little trolling. The fourth case is waifu wars or husband wars. Some people may disrespect another person's waifu preference cause that person hates the character, leading to arguments and fights. Well, it's our own personal preference on waifus. Deep down, we all know that we are The fifth case is the most stupidest thing you could do. Sending death threats to the author, the animation studio and the voice actor. I mean, can you just shut the fuck up? हमको बड़ी मुश्किल से सीजन 4 मिला अटैक ऑन टाइटन का, एंड तुम लोगों को कंप्लेंट करनी है. जस्ट ग्रो द फक अप. ऐसा करने से कुछ नहीं होगा. Here's an unpopular opinion. Toxic fans can make an anime famous. So toxic fan is neither good or bad. It just exists. You can't say anything. One more thing. चाहे toxic fan base हो या good fan base हो, अगर तुम कहोगे कि anime is a cartoon or for kids, this will be the outcome.
400万リラのスーツだぞ。表に出ろ。敵だなてめえ。何？敵か敵か敵か敵か敵か
I have a final gift before I end this video. Anime source recommendations. Literally हर एक बंदा Death Note recommend करता है और मैं भी same करूँगा. Death Note, Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen. These animes are the best to begin with in the shonen genre. In the comedy genre, Assassination Classroom and Love is War. In Isekai, ReZero and Konosuba. Konosuba has medium fan service. So don't watch it on TV. मैंने भी ऐसी गलती करी थी. Please don't do it. ReZero is straight up serious. In romance, Horimiya and Bunny Girl Senpai. Again, no fan service in these animes and are totally safe to watch on TV except Konosuba and Love is War OVA. Also, watch anime in sub or known as Japanese audio plus subtitles. Only Death Note has great voice acting in English dub. Rest of the animes don't, unfortunately. After watching the above mentioned animes, you can ask for even more saucy sauce in the comment section or the Instagram DM. Finally, this video is done after so long. मेरा पुराना लैपटॉप मर गया था along with the data and thank fuck I made a backup of my script before it died. मैंने बाकी कुछ तो बैकअप किया नहीं and after 3 weeks I finally got a new gaming laptop called Asus जो कि 69420 times better है मेरे पुराने वाले से. But let's pay respect to my old laptop. Anyways, if this video is great, kindly don't forget to leave a like cause every like matters. And if you're impressed by the quality of my content, feel free to support me by subscribing to this underrated person right here talking to you and following my dad's social media accounts. 2 more videos about anime coming up after 2 months मुझे भी नहीं पता but I will upload the videos. I got tests in 3 days by school and मैं ये video Sunday को upload कर रहा हूँ. से गंबाते को दसाए and I'll upload another video during July.
頑張ってください善逸くん一番応援していますよ
Anyways, I'll see y'all later in my next video. Until then,